Lily, what did she say to you last night?
She kept saying, "Go back to sleep." So I did.
That was the only statement 11-year-old Lily Nolan gave to investigators. She had slept through the entire thing.
In the next room, separated from Lily by a single thin wall, her mother, her brother, and 2 family friends had been murdered.
The worst thing I have ever seen in 22 years of law enforcement.
It has now been over 40 years. 3 of those 4 murders have never been officially solved. And Lily, the only witness, was asleep.
Welcome to Dead Hour. And tonight, we're going into Cabin 28. Harrowfield Resort, 1981. A cluster of rental cabins tucked into the Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California, about 4 hours north of Sacramento. The kind of place city people drove to on weekends to feel like they'd escaped the world. But for a handful of families, Harrowfield wasn't a vacation, it was home. Year-round tenants, people who couldn't quite afford anything else, families who had quietly fallen through the cracks of the American dream and landed here, in the mountains, in the cold. The Nolan family had lived in Cabin 28 for about a year. Sharon Nolan, 36, was a single mother, warm, well-liked by her neighbors, known for leaving her door unlocked because she believed people should feel welcome. She had 4 children. Her eldest son, Danny, 15, helped her around the cabin. Her daughter, Lily, 11, was the quiet one. Sharp eyes, didn't miss much. That night, April 11th, a Saturday, Sharon had 2 family friends visiting. Martin Cole, 33, and his teenage son, Robbie, 17. They'd driven up from the valley. They'd had dinner together. Sharon's youngest kids were put to bed in the back room.
Sweet dreams, my loves.
At some point after midnight, someone, or more than one person, entered Cabin 28. They didn't break in through a window. They came through the front door. Which means Sharon either knew them or she opened it herself. At approximately 7 a.m. on April 12th, Lily walked next door to Cabin 27 and knocked on the door. She told the neighbors her family wouldn't wake up. The neighbor, a woman named Patrice, walked over to check. She never made it past the living room. I want to be careful about how I describe the crime scene, not because I'm protecting you from horror, but because the details matter, and they deserve to be handled with respect. Sharon Nolan, Martin Cole, and Robbie Cole had been bound with electrical wire and medical tape. They had been beaten, and they had been stabbed multiple times with 2 different weapons, a kitchen knife and what investigators identified as a hunting-style blade. The level of violence was not spontaneous. This took time. This was sustained. Danny Nolan, 15 years old, was found separately. The details of what happened to Danny were so severe that the lead investigator, in his official report, wrote only this. Victim 4 showed signs consistent with prolonged struggle. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. Time of death estimated between 1 to 3 a.m. Danny had fought back against multiple attackers for a long time. In the back bedroom, Lily and Sharon's 2 youngest children, ages 5 and 7, were asleep, undisturbed. The bedroom door had been left open. The killers walked past it. They could have gone in. They chose not to. That is not the behavior of someone in a rage. That is the behavior of someone in control. And that single detail is what has haunted investigators, criminologists, and armchair detectives for over 4 decades. Because it tells you something about the person or people who did this. They had a reason to be there. They had a reason to kill those 4. And they had a reason to leave the children alive. Police canvassed every cabin at Harrowfield Resort. They interviewed every resident. They collected physical evidence, fingerprints, trace materials. And then, almost immediately, the investigation started to fall apart. Problem 1, the neighbors. Multiple residents reported hearing loud arguing from cabin 28 between 10 p.m. and midnight. Some said they heard a woman screaming, but no one called the police. Not a single person. When asked why, the answers were variations of the same theme. We thought it was just a fight. We didn't want to get involved. It wasn't our business. Problem 2. The suspects. 2 local men, known to the Nolan family, known to have been in the area that night, were identified as persons of interest within weeks. Gerald Frazier, 36, and Tommy Wick, 27. Gerald Frazier was described by neighbors as volatile, prone to confrontation, and had a history of disputes with Sharon Nolan over unpaid debts. Tommy Wick was his companion, younger, quieter, but connected to Frazier in ways that investigators found deeply relevant. Both men had alibis. Both alibis were provided by each other. Neither man was charged with the murders of Sharon, Martin, or Robbie. In 1999, 18 years later, Gerald Frazier was finally arrested and charged with the murder of Danny Nolan. DNA evidence had reemerged, a partial print, hair samples, enough to move. He died in custody in 2004, awaiting trial before a single verdict was returned. Tommy Wicks was never charged. He died a free man in 2010. The murders of Sharon Nolan, Martin Cole, and Robbie Cole remain, as of today, officially unsolved. Here's the thing I haven't told you yet. The thing that I couldn't tell you at the beginning because you needed the full picture first. In 2004, a fragment of human skull was discovered by a group of hikers approximately 3 miles from the Harrowfield Resort site. It was sent to a forensic lab. It was matched via dental records and bone composition analysis to Danny Nolan. Danny's skull had been removed from the crime scene, not accidentally displaced, not lost in evidence handling, taken deliberately, carried 3 miles into the wilderness, and left there. No explanation was ever given. No theory has ever fully accounted for why. And when you factor that detail back into everything we know about that night, the controlled nature of the crime, the children left unharmed, the deliberate entry through an unlocked front door, you stop asking who did this, and you start asking something far more disturbing. What did Nolan see? Lily Nolan grew up. She moved away from Harrowfield, changed her last name, built a quiet life somewhere far from the mountains. She has never publicly spoken about that night in any detail beyond her original statement. She kept saying, "Go back to sleep." So I did. I've been thinking about that sentence for a long time because there's only one person who could have said that to Lily. Which means, at some point during that night, Sharon Nolan was still alive, still aware enough to speak to her daughter, still trying to protect her. The horror of Cabin 28 isn't the violence. The horror is what love looks like at the very end. It looks like a mother, terrified, hurt, running out of time, telling her child to go back to sleep so she wouldn't have to see. Tell me in the comments, do you think Lily heard more than she said? Because I've read that original statement dozens of times, and I think she knew exactly what was happening. If this story hit you the way it hit me, share it. These cases deserve to stay in the public conversation. Subscribe for more stories told like this, with the weight, the detail, and the respect they deserve. I'll see you in the next one.